Good morning, thank you, Wedge. It's good to be here again for this, our 20th breakfast, and I echo Wedge's comments about how good it is to see so many people here, including the young people. Our Upper Hunter update is in the context of, if anybody's been watching any of the media, there's a lot going on in the rest of the world at the moment. And we're very fortunate this morning to have Craig James here from Concept. I'm going to let him talk to you about all of that news and put that into perspective for us. What it does do is highlight some of the uncertainties which are impacting on business and consumer confidence, but it doesn't change our underlying story, which is that the Upper Hunter reflects the Australian economy, but it's not just a straight reflection. It's like looking in a funhouse mirror. You know how some things in a funhouse mirror look much bigger and other things look much smaller? Well, for the Upper Hunter, the strong factors in the Australian economy are magnified, and the weaker factors are not as strongly felt. So it's certainly of similar nature, but it's a better picture here than elsewhere in Australia. Just having a look at some of the forces that are shaping Australia's economy and therefore the Upper Hunters, and making the point that it does have an impact across various sectors. The biggie is strong global demand for our resources and commodities, and to some extent our agricultural products. And of course those are particularly important in the Upper Hunter. They're driving the growth in export prices for those sorts of products, and also the strong resource investment, which is having a big impact on Australia's and the Upper Hunter economy. That demand is undersupplied, and that's what's driving up prices. And at the same time, we've got a high Australian dollar, we've got strong terms of trade, and that impacts differently on different sectors. So for those that are exposed to import competition or are non-resource exporters, it's a different picture from the mining industry and to some of the agricultural industry. We also have the context of a very full employment labour market. So we're having growth in real income, but that's not necessarily flowing through into household spending. Households are choosing to save rather than spend, and that's having a particular impact on retail. We're not in the same position as the US and Europe, and that's why Canada is still the developing country. The US, there's talks that they've run out of strategies to address the problems that they have, but for us, the factors that buffered us from the first global financial crisis are still there. So if things do get worse, we still have very low national debt, we still have scope to move interest rates down, and in fact the banks have done some of that yesterday. We have strong employment conditions, and we do have real income growth. So it isn't all gloom and doom. In terms of our regional update, we'll have a look at employment. It is our 10-year anniversary here. We now have 10 years of data, and we're going to use that to give us a sense of where we've come from, to give us a better sense of context of where we are now. Employment gives us some of that history and also underpins what's happening as consumers. We'll have a look at business investment and business expectations, what's happening with consumer demand and consumer confidence. And because it's the 10-year anniversary, we've done a little snapshot with local residents, asking them about how they see conditions here now compared to 10 years ago. Not just the economy, because increasingly governments and the OECD, the UN, are saying we need to augment economic indicators with other things, quality of life, what's happening in the environment, and we're not going to do it today, but now we're talking about sustainability indicators in Australia. If there's time, we'll do a quick update on the attitudes to climate change to the track, and we'll finish with the innovation update. The Reserve Bank in its last report made the comment that all of the factors that are playing out in in Australia is serving to accelerate structural change in industry, and that the resources boom, which is driving things at the moment, isn't going to be here forever, and as it fades, we're going to need to lift productivity, and that's where innovation comes back in. Well, we've been using the 10-year timescale as much as possible, and we took the opportunity in our last survey to ask residents how they saw the differences in the Upper Hunter now compared to 10 years ago. We asked them firstly about the economy, and we've separated those who actually were living here 10 years ago from those who have arrived since. And the majority, I have to say, is people who live here long term. You can see that on this scale where the bottom of the left-hand end is much worse and the right-hand end is much better, there's strong consensus that the economy in the Upper Hunter is much better than it was. For those who say it's much better, it's all about more jobs, more opportunities, higher wages, greater job security. There are people for whom it is worse, and for them, they're the folk who are being left out of this ride, and for whom prices have risen and relatively they're being left behind. But we also asked about quality of life, and the stories are a little bit different there. The community is a bit more divided about how things were 10 years ago compared with now. And it's particularly a difference between those who are actually living here 10 years ago. They're quite divided between those who say it's better and those who say it's not so good. For the more recent arrivals, they're seeing what is happening more recently and only have hearsay about what life was like 10 years ago. For those who say it's better, it's about more services, facilities, more shops. For those who say it's not so good, the concern is about the impact of mining on the environment and land use. Moving to the environment, we asked residents the exact same question that we asked in our first survey 10 years ago, and that was, what do you see as the single most important environmental issue in the Upper Hunter? 10 years ago, in the grey, there was quite a spread across a number of different environmental issues. Air pollution was the biggest by a little bit, but freshwater pollution was close behind. Dust from the coal mines was up there. In 2011, the perception is that the biggest single environmental issue is air pollution. I'm going to move to our innovation indicators and take us back to the issue of productivity. There hasn't been much change in the level of innovation in the Upper Hunter over the 5 surveys or so that we've done. Around 1/3 of businesses have introduced a new product or service in the last 12 months, and that's very similar to the Hunter region. What has changed is the motivators for business innovation. This is 4 surveys, and you can see that improving profitability, satisfying demand from existing customers, and expanding client base are the major motivators, but in the last, there's a trend towards improving efficiency, increasing capacity, and meeting competition from other providers. They're moving right up there. So, summing up very quickly, the Upper Hunter economy does continue to outpace the rest of the region and the state, and the medium-term outlook is looking pretty positive, driven by that global demand. We still have this exceptionally tight labour market, which is starting to place constraints on some sectors, although it may be coming off the board. There is a softness in business conditions, but the investment intentions are still strong. The housing construction industry has been recovering, and the demand may help to power that along, especially if interest rates really do come off. And consumer sentiment is weaker, and spending is cautious, but it hasn't become negative as it has elsewhere. The risk factor is global financial crisis, and we don't see that as may doing anything but really slowing the pace of change further. Thank you.